So in this build, we're going to create some wooden trays. We're going to start with the large box, and we're going to create wooden trays for all the miniatures, and we're going to start from the bottom up. The first tray is, I'm using this 3mm basswood. I'm pretty sure that you could also use foam core board to do what I'm about to do. So this tray is for the small to medium size figures, and so the largest figure that I'm going to use are going to be these soldiers. So I know that I need the walls of the first tray to at least be 1 inch and 5/8 tall. So that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, so these are the sheets of basswood I'm using. They're 12 by 12, and I ordered this off Amazon. This particular brand, I've used lots of this stuff for different things, and this particular brand always seems to be pretty flat. So this is the setup I'm using to do this. This is my table saw, and I use a crosscut sled. And again, I do believe you could do this same thing with foam core board, using an X-Acto knife to cut it and hot glue to glue it together. On a smaller scale, you could also buy a contractor grade table saw and create a small crosscut sled, which there's lots of videos on making these things. So that box is 12 by 12. This sheet is 12 by 12, but I'm going to trim off the edges, probably just even a 1/16 of an inch off each edge, just so it doesn't fit so tight in the box. Okay, so I've measured my 1 5/8 here against my blade. I've got a stop block, and I got this little thing here to hold it down. So I'm going to cut these. I've got 4 of them stacked. Okay, so by some miracle that cut that stack exactly in half. And so now I have 8 strips. They're, what did I say? They're 1 5/8 inch high. So now I need to cut 2 end caps, basically. One here and one here. These also need to be 1 5/8 inches. Again, these are scraps. You can cut all this out of, a square of wood, or if you're using foam core board, use that. And so I'm going to cut 2. Okay, so I'm going to glue one of my little end caps on, and I'm just going to barely put any glue on here. Use my little foam brush. While I've got this other piece on here, I can see how much I need to trim my internal dividers by placing this up there. And marking that. So I know I need to trim them about that much. Okay, so I've marked, see all these dividers I've got here? They're gonna go inside to divide. And so I know I need to trim them by that much so they'll fit on the inside. So I can see when I put this one divider wall up, it's not trimmed quite enough, because another one's going to come on the back side here. So I need to trim them all just a little bit more. Next step is, these are the dividers. I've just set them in there. I haven't glued them yet, but I just got a couple of guys in there, a couple of soldiers, just to check my spacing. And then what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue on the sides and the bottom of all of these, stick them in here, and just put some clamps on the end. So I'm about halfway through gluing, and so what I'm doing, I'm just one divider at a time. I'm using my soldiers as spacers to figure out on the spacing for gluing the next. So the second miniature tray will include more of the medium-sized, and most of the heroes. There's 2 heroes that are a little too tall to include in this tray. Tallest ones are the zombies, and so we'll make the wall height on these. We'll go 1 7/8. So this is going to be the third miniature tray. It contains the tallest and the largest, and so it looks like I'm going to have to go 2 1/4 inches. That's about the tallest thing there. Also, there's some larger bases here, and I'd like to place these cards like this, so I will have to draw where I want the partitions to go. Just kind of a rough sketch. Okay, so my main board is 11 3/4 by 11 3/4. I cut all these pieces accordingly, and now I'm going to glue them up into a square. I've got these glued up the way I had drawn in, and what I'm going to do is come back and put in a divider that way and a divider that way. But I'm going to let these dry just a bit first. And so what I'm going to do is just put this, move my arm so you can see, just like this. Okay, so this is what I have so far. And so, let me switch hands here. And so, and this one. And this one. And so what I did with this one is I actually had enough space here to add another little divider there. And so I've got these cards. These are all stacked, and that's the loot cards. And that's for the tall figures. You can see I had to put one of the heroes in there. He's pretty tall. So I have quite a bit of space here now. So I'm going to put the large miniatures right here. So these guys are going to actually go in the bottom of this box. And so this is about how I would configure them in the little box I'm going to make. Take a measurement of my highest point, and it looks to me like 4 1/4 will work out. So I'm going to make the sides 4 1/4. So I actually reconfigured everything, and I'm actually able to get these doors in here also. I drew some little marks on here. I'm going to add some little tabs in here to give this box some stability and support, and some little handles if I want to be able to lift it out of the box. Okay, so I actually remeasured, and so we're going to make the walls of this 4 inches tall. So I'm going to take these over to the crosscut sled and cut those walls. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll measure out 4 inches, and I'm going to place a stop block here. And then make my cuts. Next, we're going to have to cut the length of our dividers. I mean, not our dividers, but our walls. You could measure it, or you could just do like what I'm doing here and just make a little mark on where you want to cut it to, and cut 2 of them that way. And then you'll do the same thing for the other ones. So we'll measure these others the same way, how much I'm going to have to cut off. But then you're going to also have to cut off an additional amount because they'll fit inside these others. So take the thickness of 2 of these, and then we'll cut off an additional amount. Okay, so I'm going to glue these little tabs in here. This will strengthen the box, is kind of the whole purpose of doing this. So I'm going to glue these a couple at a time so I can put some weight on them, clamp them, and I'll continue doing that. Meanwhile, we'll start working on another part of the box, or another part of the storage box. Okay, so here's the finished box for the large miniatures. They fit really well in here. Now I'm going to have to two hands put this in, so I'll be right back. Okay, so there it is in the box. And then we can go with the rest of these guys. And that is just about perfect. Okay, so this is what I was hoping, is all your large squares you can put right here. And with the lid on it, there's no lid lift, so that's about a perfect fit. Okay, so the next part of this is going to go into the base box. The bottom tray will hold the doors, these pieces, these big square pieces along with these small pieces, and I'm hoping that I can also store my dice here. I've got this bag up and I bought an extra set of dice. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll take my pencil, I'll make some rough marks on where I want my dividers to be. One there, one that'll go across use my tape measure, and it's going to have to be 2 3/8 high. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking about the player cards. So they're in stacks of 2, and I'm going to add some dividers. I just need to make sure there's enough space in here that you can get your fingers in to get the cards out. So I'm going to trace some lines through here. I'm going to use this as kind of a visual aid for myself to do that. Okay, so this is the pattern I've traced out, and so I'm going to just go through the same process I did on the other trays. Okay, so here's the finished card tray. Turned out really well. Like I said, these are doubled up, they are sleeved, and there's plenty of room in here to grab the cards out. That's the thing I was worried about as far as getting your fingers in there, but it actually turned out really well. The next thing are the tokens. So I'm going to take what I've got here and what's left in this, and I'm going to make 2 different storage trays. That way the tokens would be a little easier to manage pulling these trays out. Instead of having one large tray, you could have 2. So I'm going to count out my compartments and take my square pencil and start tracing out some lines. Okay, and so I want to include these cards here also. I didn't sleeve mine, but there'll be enough room if you wanted to sleeve yours. Probably a little bit of that. And then I found my center line here. I'm going to draw a center line and divide that into compartments. I'll probably do the same thing on this, find a center line, divide it into compartments using my square. So here's the layout, and the walls of this are going to be 1.25 inches tall, which is plenty of height, especially if you want to sleeve these cards, still plenty of height. And I think I'm going to actually have some extra space here for some other things if I want. So here's the token holders right here, and everything fit really well. I even have a couple of extra slots, and these fit in here really well. And then we'll pack the tiles on top of these. Tiles went here. Got all the character sheets here. Rules, missions,